Hey everyone, today we're going to go over the condominium development model that was just uploaded to our website. We'll walk through each of the 5 tabs and I will show you how the whole thing works. And as usual, if you haven't done so already, please head over to the post, which is linked in the description below, download the model and come back and follow along with the video. So let's start right here in the summary tab. As you can see, it's been formatted so that it's very easy to print, it's very easy to convert to PDF. It all fits on one page, and it's something that's easily shareable with a third party. So here we have all the high-level important info. We have our general information, our sources, uses, the square footage in units, breakdown, the timing of the project, a very high-level dollar per sellable square foot analysis, and below we have the project level returns, both unlevered and levered. And what's not included yet in this model is a partnership level breakdown or a waterfall module. But as you know, on our website, we have a lot of modules that you can download that are waterfalls. So there will be a future iteration that will include that. But for now, you can download one of the waterfall modules on our website, and you can link up the cash flows from here into that, into those models. Now, there are a few important inputs on this tab that need to be filled out. So from the top, we have our general info, which is the project name and address. We have our lot size, and we have the project start date. Now, this is important to fill out because this flows through to the cash flow portion of the model. So as you can see here, you can have a drop-down menu to pick your month and a drop-down menu to select the year. And so for right now, we have January 2017, and as you'll see that this flows through all the way to the cash flow tab to cell N6, which starts our cash flow projection. And our next tab is our inputs tab, and the inputs tab has 5 work boxes, and we'll go over these 4, and we won't go over the financing assumptions workbox because there is a step-by-step instruction guide here, and I'd like to keep this video as short as possible for everybody. All right, so let's zoom into the first workbox, our condo units and timing workbox. Here's where you're going to put in the total units of the project. In cell C5, cell C6, you're going to put in the number of units you project that you're going to pre-sell before you can let people occupy the building. And then under that, in cell C7, you're going to put the number of units you expect to sell once the project opens per month. And then under that, you're going to put in your date for closing of pre-sales. So when you pre-sell those 50 units, what's the date you can actually close and collect the money for it? And this is also the same date as when you start your regular sales. And so when you fill in all these inputs, the numbers in cell C11, 12, and 13 spit out. And you get the months that it takes to sell the project out, the number of units sold in the last month. So you need to sell 1 unit in month 8 to sell all 100 units. And then the sellout date, which is August 2019 in this model. So let's go over to the cash flow sheet to demonstrate how this workbox is actually flowing through our pro forma. So if we look at row 190 and row 198 as well, you can see that these numbers are being calculated into this row using the formula, which I'm not going to go into details, and you can explore on your own time. But you can see right here between columns AL and AS, we have January 2019, and we have our 50 pre-sold units closing plus 7 units that we've sold during this month, and the remaining 7 units being sold per month. And in month 8, we have that 1 remaining unit. And so if we look below, we have our revenue cash flow line. And this line has a simple formula that refers to our units sold row. And it's basically saying, give me the number of units sold this month multiplied by inputs C23. Which input C23 brings us to our next workbox. And that is the average unit sale price. So the revenue row is basically saying number of units sold times our average unit sale price. And the way we derive this average unit sale price is very straightforward, and it uses both our program units workbox and our square footage, the stacking plan. All right, so let's close this up top and let's zoom out a bit, and we can look at both of these work boxes together. So how we derive our average unit sale price is through our sellable square footage. So either you're working with an architect, you're doing this as an exercise, you will fill out the stacking plan in order to get a good idea of what is involved in building this building, what the square footage looks like floor by floor, and it will sum up all the square footage at the top here. So you have your sellable square footage, which with that number, along with your total units, gets added, or I'm sorry, gets divided, and you get your average sellable square foot per unit. And in the cell below, cell C22, this is where you're going to put your projected dollar per square foot sale price. That's average over the entire building. So it's very straightforward, very simple, and you just take those two cells and you multiply them together, and this gives you your average unit sale price. So the rest of the cells in these two work boxes don't directly impact how the model works, but they're important metrics to know and understand, and they're things that third parties are going to want to see. For example, we have the unit mix up here, which is something that you should always be evaluating and understanding. It's good to look at the market and see what other competitors are doing, potentially finding inefficiencies. And so this is an important piece of information. So there's the ability to input the unit mix and how many numbers of units are going to be supplied, and that flows back to the summary sheet. And the remaining inputs in the stacking plan are also really important to know. How many floors you're going to have, what's the gross square footage. Even though the sellable square foot is the only thing driving this model, everything else is equally as important. You need to understand how much MEP space is going to be taking up your project, how much amenity space you want to offer. Actually, what I'm noticing in this model right now is that on floor 5, we have more sellable square feet plus MEP square feet than gross square feet. So let's fix this. And for a future model, maybe even in the one I upload, we'll have a check to make sure that you can't actually do that. So all of this information is very important to look at and understand, should be readily available for yourself and for other people wanting this information that are working with you on the project. And so the final workbox we're going to review in this video is the PreSale Expenses OpEx workbox. And this workbox gives you the ability to calculate the HOA dues and the real estate taxes that you will owe while you continue to own the units before they're all sold. So you have a spot to input the mill rate, the assessed value of the property to get your annual tax that's going to be due that year. And then you have a whole worksheet down here that allows you to put in any items that the HOA is going to cover and what the projected dollar or cents per square foot that item is. And all of that flows through to the cash flow tab. So as you can see, we have our HOA fees and taxes, and they are also dependent on the unit count that's sold. So basically, as the owners of the units, you still have to pay up until you sell the last one. So these formulas for both taxes and HOA dues calculate that appropriately. And so that covers up everything in the inputs tab, save for the financing assumptions. But as you can see, there's detailed step-by-step instructions. So let's move on to the budgets tab. So the budget tab is very simple and easy to use. It's actually one of my favorite parts of this model. All you simply have to do is fill in. You have the ability to choose between 6 major categories, and you can custom title all of them except for your acquisitions and land purchase section. And then you have the ability to add up to 27 subcategories for each main category. And what's really cool, and I'm really happy about this model, is that the budget detail section here will auto format as you fill in this input section to the right. So, for example, let's add an additional line item to the acquisition and land purchase section. And I want you to watch cell D27. So let's just type extra cost. And you'll notice that it auto-populates, and let's add a price. We can say $20,000. And it will fill it in automatically. And this will work all throughout. So let's, for example, we have soft costs. We can change that to, let's just call this hard costs as well, just for now, just so you can watch what happens in cell D29. That will change over to hard costs as well. And that also flows all the way through the model, all the way back to the summary, all the way to your sources and uses tab, or your sources and uses box within the summary tab. And if you'd like to understand the nuts and bolts of how all this works, you can unhide the rows down below here, which I believe are currently hidden. Yeah, they're currently hidden. You can unhide that, and you can see all kinds of formulas and action going on down below there. All right, so let's move on to the cash flow sheet, which has our construction cash flows, the unlevered and levered cash flows, and our draw schedule. There's really important component to this model is within this sheet. As you can see, there's an arrow pointing to all these hidden groups, and here's where you control the timing and how the cash flows during the project. So let's open up the hard costs section, and you can see all of the subcategories have flown through, and it gives you the ability to select which month, and which is similar to one of Spencer's draw models. It gives you the bell curve, so you can choose whether it's moderately steep, moderately flat, and all of these will change how the cash is flowing within the model. Let's just so we can see, let's move this back to period 1, and I guess we can stay at 19. So we're at moderately flat, and we can change to a flat line, which will give us a smaller curve. We can go to a steeper line, which will give us a much more extreme, little spent in the beginning, a lot in the middle, and then a little bit spent at the end. And so this is all the functionality within the cash flow model, within the cash flow tab, that you need to be aware of. However, if you choose custom, you'll notice a bit of conditional formatting that is basically turning red because the dollar amount that's being added up here, which is adding up the draw schedule, is not equal to what's put in the budget. And the reason for that is that the user is selecting custom and therefore has to go to the custom cash flow sheet. And since we were in hard costs, let's open up the hard costs section. And here you'll notice we have our line item appear with the budget. This is turned green to make it easy for you to find where you need to input your custom cash flow, which row. And then you'll have the remaining budget that needs to be input into the cash flow projection field. So let's do that now. Let's input 2.5 million in period 2, and you'll notice that the allocation shows up and our remaining budget is only 2.5. So let's put another 2.5 million in period 7. And what you'll notice is that both the allocation column and remaining column in row 68 have both turned green, and the remaining column has no more money left in it. So if we go back to the cash flow section, you can see that the conditional formatting is turned off here, and our custom cash flow has populated into the model. All right, so let's close this up. Then we have our unlevered cash flow, we have our levered cash flow, and we have our draw schedule below. And I won't go into a lot of detail with this, other than to note that you have to make sure if you have your floating rate interest that you input that into this area, into row 223. And I believe that's everything. If you want to know more about this draw schedule, although there have been some updates to the formula, I'd encourage you to check out my other blog post that talks about true loan to cost, and it uses this model was built off of the module that I built for that post. So you can download that and follow along with that video as well. So I believe that's it with this video, and thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.